And of course, Fern had quite a business doing wedding cakes and things.
Yes.
And I don't know how she got into that, but I remember I must have gone to some weddings or something, because I remember they were pretty tasty wedding cakes, and they looked beautiful too.
Yeah.
So tell us how Fern got established in her restaurant, because I would think in those days, you know, having a woman having a business was, you know, kind of unusual. Does anybody know exactly how that all?
Well, you know, it was during the war, and this one restaurant in town had closed. It was sort of a fountain with a kind of a restaurant as part of it, but I think it catered more to a fountain trade than to the restaurant. And so there was only one restaurant in town, and it wasn't all that good. And I don't know, of course, my mother did a lot of cooking and baking
She
for
just liked to cook.
church affairs and things, and so people knew a lot about her cooking and baking ability. And so I don't know, somehow somebody just suggested, why didn't she go ahead and buy out that building and open a restaurant? And you know, we kind of thought that was a joke to begin with, but I guess pretty soon it got to be a serious consideration. And so folks went ahead and bought the building, and the building was not in real good shape. So they had to do quite a bit of work to get it ready to open up. And because they had no idea whether people would come or not. But I remember, well, I was in, I guess, sophomore or junior in high school at the time. And the first day, when we got home from school in the afternoon, the crowds were beginning to come. And all three of us wound up carrying plates out to customers and serving. It was a pretty wild time, but it wasn't too long after that we shut the other guy down. He didn't have enough business left. Well, as a matter of fact, we bought his cook away from him. She was a good cook. She did all the orders. My mother baked pies and cakes, and guys, traveling salesmen would stop there just for a piece of pie and a cup of coffee.
Well,
She had the railroad crew too.
Oh yeah.
the railroad crew
Right. Yeah.
came through, stopped there for meals.
Right.
And they started coming there. And of course, we got to know some of the crew, and
They usually stop on their way through up to Colville. I don't know how far, whether they went further than that or not, but then they turn around and come back down, they'd stop again, have another meal. So yeah, they were pretty steady. In fact, several of them, when they had a day off, would drive their wife up from Spokane just to have a meal in Mom's Cafe.
well, the folks were planning to go to a day off, I guess, or something, to Spokane this one day, and I hadn't been feeling very good for a few days, and anyway, it ended up that I had appendicitis, and so needless to say, they didn't get to go to their trip. But because we'd made such good friends with these railroad men, while I was in the hospital, they sent me some flowers. And I remember that, so yeah.
Well, as I recall, Aunt Fern said that, now, maybe it wasn't the railroad workers, but it was somebody that was looked down upon in society. But she said they were, and I think they'd come in maybe after the regular customers would come in or something. And but she said they were very polite. She always was glad to have them, and they always, they were great customers, and she was glad to serve them. I don't know, I think it was maybe the railroad, I'm not sure who it was, but.
No, I don't think that would have been the ones,
It
but,
wasn't.
you know, this was, like I say, during the Second World War, and basically everything was rationed. And because this restaurant had been closed, the ration board had no idea how many ration points to give to start out.
Yes.
And so it was a fairly small number, and it didn't take very long until they'd used up all the ration points for sugar, and of course meat was rationed. There were certain days of the week when things like kidneys or beef tongue or that kind of thing, which didn't take as many meat points as regular roast beef and steak and things like that. And so the ration board would have to issue more points. Well, it got to the point where there were any number of widowers in town who didn't really want to cook their own meals, so they'd come and give all their ration points to the restaurant, and then they'd eat their meals there. And I don't know whether it might have been some of those guys that she was talking about, but yeah, it was a little tough because the business was so good that you were constantly trying to figure out ways to not use up more points, because you knew that I don't know, when they issued more points every quarter. I don't think it was monthly. I think it was probably quarterly.
Yeah.
And so they'd wind up toward the end of the quarter with not many points left and trying to scrape up meals to serve to the customers. And
And it was hard to get good help at that time. And Mother was putting in so many long hours, and that's why it's funny, that's why she just couldn't do it any longer. It just got to be too much. Ruining her health.
Yeah.
And that's when they...
Well, of course, when they remodeled after they'd been in business for a while and got rid of a lot of the soda fountain part and redid it and got more booths and tables. And then we finished off an area that had been unfinished in the restaurant and made that a dining room for things like Kiwanis or Rotary or that kind of thing. And so she served luncheons to all the service clubs in town. So on the days that they met, I'd come home for lunch and I'd be winding up carrying plates into the private dining room serving these service club guys.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
Well, I even remember, we were a family that kind of pitched in where we were needed, but I have vague memories of washing dishes there a couple of times. I must have wandered in for somehow, and they said,
well, that was
occupy yourself.
before the state required all this automatic dishwashing.
Yeah.
Oh, that was before then, yeah.
You had a dishwasher that she washed everything by hand and rinsed it. And I don't know whether stuff went onto a drying rack to dry or whether she actually dried that.
I don't remember.
I don't remember now.
For sure on that either.
I remember one time your mom was going somewhere and she asked me if I'd run down and work in the restaurant for a little while. And it was just a short time. Some guy came in and ordered a steak. And I think it was Mildred Morarity that was working there at the time.
Yeah.
And somehow I got the steak fried without burning both sides of it. And he got it out to the guy. And Mildred came in a little while and just snorted that guy said, that cook sure knows her stuff. She said that with a real snort. But everything else, that your mom had cooked everything else. And somehow I lucked out and got the steak so it was edible.
Well, it was quite a change because we were used to, as a family, being able to sit down together for meals.
Yeah.
And of course, this totally changed
Yeah,
that.
sure
We
did.
never could have a sit-down meal
No.
together. Mother was, and Dad wasn't too crazy about.
Well, he quit his job at
His
the
job at the
magnesite
magnesite
plant
plant, yeah.
to work full-time for a while, but he just didn't feel suited for inside work.
No, he was never really real
Yeah,
happy
so he
with that. So.
eventually went back to work at the magnesite plant, but yeah, I know Mom spent way too much time there.
Yeah, it was not the best. She enjoyed it, but it just.
Well, yeah, and you know, people were so complimentary to her about the quality of the meals
Right.
also.
And by the way, at that time, the special always was the lunchtime.